We'll call the meeting to order. Need a motion to go in executive session.
So moved. No, second. There we can
I
let
have a
them.
motion by Senator Innes, seconded by Senator Rosenwald to go into executive session. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in the executive session. Okay. You've got your handy dandy cheat sheet. Before that, on your desk are 2 copies of the FM report. They're different formats.
Yeah, state report.
That's okay.
All right.
I find it very difficult to use the existing format that we are using. So I went down to the IT people and I said, what can you do for me? They can give it to me in a spreadsheet that Ms. Martone can sort, add the stuff to it that she needs to. And it should come out pretty much just the way your calendars are, with the consent stuff first, then sorted by committee, and then sorted by bill number. And then the regular calendar done the same way. I noticed that this copy here has a few that aren't that way, but that is what is being proposed. So we got a couple of loves it and a couple of other things, but we are looking at it, and as soon as we get the sort stuff fixed. The report, in the actual wording on the report will change some to match the new format. And remember that one of the things that we don't really take care of in the FN report is if somebody comes in with an amendment on a bill that makes it either waive or take to finance and changes that because of the content of the amendment. And I'll try to deal with that in the letter.
Mr. Chairman, a question of one of the bills that you're waiving, Senate Bill 132. When you look at the the fiscal report, there seem to be fairly significant fiscal implications. So I wondered why we're waiving the bill if indeed there are. This is the Sanctuary Cities Bill.
Let me look up 132 since you've asked the question.
Prohibiting cities and towns from adopting sanctuary policies.
It's not in the book yet, so that's,
They don't have it.
all right. I'll answer that question to you separately offline then,
Okay.
Senator.
Fine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So going back up top of the list, 115, relative to making appropriations to the Department of Health and Human Services for the purpose of funding vaccine administration to the Public Health Department. And we have amendment 0541.
Second.
So from Senator Bradley moves ought to pass, seconded by Senator Rosenwald. Do I have a motion on the amendment? Same two on the amendment. Discussion on the amendment. Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment 0541, say aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Now the motion is ought to pass as amended. It's already been moved and seconded, Senator. We took those first. And further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And Senator Rosenwald will take that out. Next one on the list is 122.
Second.
Senator Pearl moves ought to pass. Seconded by Senator Birdsall. Amendment 0908,
Second.
and I have the same seconds. Do I have further discussion? Senator Bradley.
So, I'm going to support this. I'm assuming that this will be a recommendation of ought to pass as amended and laid upon the table by the full Senate for consideration in the budget. During that period of time, can we get you, Mr. Kane, to, with the Charlie Arling House, scrub the costs of the engineering study so that we have something accurate? I know Senator Stiles has, been around this building a long time, but I think it would be appropriate for Charlie to look at it.
Mr. Chairman. I would say, I would ask that my colleagues vote against Amendment 0908. Because we have another amendment that takes care of this situation in terms of developing the plan, and that's amendment number 0784S. And that carries an appropriation, it's in our book, carries an appropriation of $300,000 for the study. The current amendment that we're looking at, 0908, has a $2 million appropriation, but doesn't do what we want. I don't think, based on the conversations we've had. So I think the other amendment is more appropriate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the amendment in front of us right now is 0908. Further discussion, Senator Rosenbaum.
Thank you. I'm going to be voting against this amendment. While I share Senator Avard's commitment to making our state parks accessible to everyone, I'm mindful of the letter we got from Fish and Game talking about the potential sites at Hampton Beach as having negative impacts on the baby seals and piping plovers and the least terns. If we were able to get to this other amendment, we would make sure that DNC addressed those wildlife concerns in looking for a site. But this amendment does not take into account the fact that the mother seals haul out on Hampton Beach. They leave their infants kind of unprotected while they rest for a bit. And Fish and Game is concerned about whether this is going to harm the baby seal population. Thank you.
Further discussion?
So this is the exact reason why I want Charlie Arling House and his folks to look at this, look at it carefully. It may well be that at the end of the day, that a figure much more like yours with, the provisions that you're talking about, to take into consideration the wildlife considerations. I don't have a problem with that, but I would be more comfortable at the higher figure at this point. I think it's easier to reduce it based on, what administrative services comes back to us with, than go the other way. So that's why I'll be supporting the $2 million.
Okay, seeing no other discussion, I'll just weigh in. This would be one that I would suggest tabling, which would allow us to make any of the adjustments that the two senators we're asking for, if those should be adopted. But right now, what is in front of us is a motion on 0908. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No,
Okay, so. All right, do I have a motion on the other amendment?
I would move amendment 07, 0784.
What was the count on 908?
4-3,
Ought to pass?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Senator D'Alessandro moves amendment 0784. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Second by Senator Rosenbaum. Further discussion?
Yes.
All those in favor
Wait,
say aye.
no, wait.
Oh, you do have a discussion.
Well, I just wanted to say that I had a conversation with Senator Avard about this amendment, and he was okay with it. So his name's not on it because he's not on the committee, but he was okay with it. And I think it takes into account the wildlife concerns that Fish and Game has expressed.
Mr. Chair, I haven't talked to Senator Avard regarding this, but I'd like to, can we pull this back and so we have a conversation?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can certainly do that. My feeling was that the amendment that we did pass, if that were what went forward only, then we tabled the bill, then the discussion that we're having right now could actually take care of itself when we get to the budget. Senator,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I saw him first, sorry.
I support the amendment again, based on a conversation I had with the sponsor of the amendment. She made it clear to me that the prime sponsor of the bill agreed with this premise, and that the 300,000 would handle what the prime sponsor wanted. That's the engineering and consultation to look at the building of a pier that addressed the needs he said. So that's my rationale for supporting the bill. And if it's going to be tabled anyway, you put $2 million on the table, you put 300,000 on the table. You know, it's a budget consideration when you get to it in the final analysis. And it seems to me the 300,000 makes more sense in terms of its adaptability to the problem that was presented and an answer to that, or a solution to that problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, since Senator Bradley.
So I did speak with Senator Avard this morning. I think he's supportive of the $2 million figures from the prior amendment. So I think what I'd suggest is that we vote down this amendment, but Senator Rosenwald, if you can convince Senator Avard that this is a better way to go, and Senator Avard's supportive, bring it in as a floor amendment next week.
The way I read this bill is that passing the Second Amendment would wipe out the 2 million that you had there before and reduce that down to the 300,000. I think it gives us more flexibility to accept the First Amendment, reject this one. Further discussion from the committee? Senator Pearl?
Mr. Chair, in reading both amendments, doesn't the First Amendment already cover what the Second Amendment is trying to do? Because the sum of $2 million for the biennium is hereby appropriated to the department for the purposes of engineering services, siting, permitting, and final design. Wouldn't that cover exactly what the Second Amendment is already trying to do?
But the Second Amendment, like I said, would wipe out the 2 million and reduce it down to the 300,000.
Understood. So, but what I'm saying is by passing the first one, we're already covering all of what the Second Amendment is looking for, or no?
Well, at a higher cost.
Well, And also, if you look on the Second Amendment, it has Roman numeral one, department, it has a Department of Natural and Cultural Resources as a part of the, citing and designing, whereas, I take that back. I'm sorry, it
Kind of
does.
looks to me like it's doing the same thing, only for less money, and I mean, we can very clearly dial down the 2 million back to 300,000 if we feel that's appropriate.
The only difference is, the first one doesn't say anything about the wildlife and
Right.
wildlife considerations, but that can be brought in, an amendment can be brought in to do that. And I'll co-sponsor a floor amendment with you, Senator Rosenwald.
Senator Rosenwald, you had your hand up.
Yes, I did. In conversations with the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, they also gave me an option for what this First Amendment did, but it wasn't going to cost $2 million. It was going to cost $4 million. They have experience. They have built a universally accessible pier on, I think it's on Profile Lake. But $2 million isn't going to do it. So I'm not sure what we feel about $2 million.
Further discussion? What's in front of us is Amendment 0784. All those in favor of Amendment 0784, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? Looks like it's 5-2 against. So the motion as amended is now just with Amendment 0908. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
And we're at 4-3 again. Same 4 and same 3.
I can take it out if you want.
Senator Pearl will take it out. Next bill is 169.
You didn't want to take it out?
What's the next bill?
169.
Second.
Bradley moves ought to pass, seconded by Senator Innes.
I'd like to move Amendment
And
0687S.
0687S has been moved by Senator Rosenwald. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Senator Del Sandro.
Could I speak to my amendment?
Absolutely,
Thank
Senator.
you. So this amendment does not do any changes to what property is taxed under property tax or utility tax. It merely states plainly that a ratepayer of a public utility system is not going to be on the hook for costs for the expense of bringing water infrastructure to Londonderry. So ratepayers in Hudson, Nashua, Merrimack, Litchfield, any other place that it has to cross. While if Pennachuck is doing this work, they're going to have to pay both property tax and utility tax. They are not going to be able to raise the water rates in the communities where this infrastructure is passing through. I worked on this with a number of people, including Bill Ardinger, Commissioner Scott. It's been shown to the Department of Energy, and the prime sponsor of the bill was also okay with it. So it doesn't change the taxation, doesn't give anybody an exemption. It just makes it clear that ratepayers are protected in the towns where these pipes might pass through. And that's the best I can say that language.
Further discussion? Senator Bradley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I spoke, well, or got word from the Department of Energy that they are gonna look at the tax implications, but I feel confident at this point that we can pass it, assuming that we put it on the table and that'll be addressed by the time we have to deal with it in the budget.
Thank you.
Okay, further discussion? Matter in front of us is Amendment 0687S. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And now it's ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 169. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And Senator Rosenwald, did you want to take that up? I thought you might. Next one on the list is 231.
Second.
Senator Bradley moves ought to pass, seconded by Senator Ennis. Senator Rosenwald moves amendment 0733S.
Yes, and I'd like to speak to it if it's seconded.
Do we have a second on the amendment? Senator D'Alessandro did second? Okay. All right,
So I
floor is yours.
Thank you. I worked on this with Senator Innes. And it does just a couple of things. One, it changes two appropriations that are one-time appropriations that in the bill as introduced were for the next biennium. But this makes them out of fiscal year 23 surplus. And so now they are in line with the governor's budget proposal. And it's one-time money for one-time projects, which I think we all see the value of. The other thing it does, and I'm really grateful to Senator Innes on this. If you remember at the public hearing, Alyssa Margolin came in and suggested that we, she suggested two things. One, that we appropriate more money, which this amendment doesn't do. But also she asked for 20 years of affordability in the Invest New Hampshire program for the affordable housing that's built in that program. I think right now, the current program is 5 years. Senator Innes suggested, and I agree with him, that 10 years is a good and reasonable compromise on affordability, considering that these are public funds.
Further discussion?
If I might, I'd
Senator
like to
Ennis?
thank Senator Rosenwald for taking the lead on this. Appreciate it very, very much. Thank you.
Seeing no other discussion, the matter in front of us is amendment 0733S. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And now we're back to the original motion as amended. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And Senator Innes, you had the base bill, so you get this one. Okay, the next one on the list is 270.
270. It's your highway.
Senator
Second,
D'Alessandro moves ought to pass.
second.
Seconded by Senator Rosenwald. Okay.
This one is what- Yes.
270 is Department of Transportation appropriation. $40 million. Senator DeSandro, you want to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'll just move on to pass it. You have within your, in your book, the distribution formula of the dollars, the 20 million for bridges and the 20 million for roads. And it's a definite need. We did 30 million in the last budget, for each. 30 million, I think it was 36 million for bridges and 30 million for roads. We take pride in the condition of our roads and bridges, and we know at this point in time, the number of red listed bridges has expanded, and we know what's happened to some of our roads, particularly in the municipalities. So this is a definite need, an infrastructure need, and it just needs to be done. And if we don't do it, what we're doing is prolonging the agony of people who are motoring around our cities and coming to our state. The pride of New Hampshire is the quality of transportation, and it's the quality of our roads. And I think in the past, we've made efforts to make them sustainable. We did this in the last budget, and want to continue that in this budget. And as I said, in your packets, you have the distribution to the cities and towns for both of these situations, both for the bridges and the roads. Now, it's a bit less, it's maybe 20 million less than it was in the last budget, but I think it's a contribution that we should be making. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion? All those in favor of ought to pass on Senate Bill 270, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Senator DeSandro, you get to take this one out.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
All right. Now we're into second committee bills. We'll go back to number 74.
Go back to the beginning of this giant book.
I know.
Well. We need it to be like one of those automatic Rolodexes where you type in the first number and it comes out. Okay. Senate Bill 74 was auto pass, came out of committee on the 5-0 relative to the Department of Administrative Services. Do I have a motion?
I move ought to pass.
Second,
Senator Innes moves ought to pass, seconded by Senator Rosenwald. I have no amendments that I know of. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Seeing none. That one looks like an easy one. I'll take that one. 104.
Thought we weren't gonna work on.
104, well, I'm going to talk about it.
Oh, okay.
104, I and Senator Lang had a meeting with Community College University System, and we got input on one of Senator Lang's amendments from the Department of Ed, that we're going to make some tweaks to that, wording such that, in fact, he was here. I don't know if maybe he's,
Yeah, he was here.
so anyway, we're gonna work on that for this week and we'll get back to you. So that's a hold. All right.
Okay.
Next bill is 105. We'll get you up here, so that when they want to talk to you, then you'll be right there. Okay, right now, 105. we'll start off by taking a motion on 105.
Move on to
Thought to
that.
pass.
Senator Regina Birdsell moves OTP, seconded by Senator Bradley. Regina moved and Senator Bradley seconded. Now I have amendment 0995 and 0948S. And they're both by Senator Rosenwald. What is your pleasure, Senator?
I would like to introduce 0948 and at some point I'd like to do what is going on here and what the amendment.
All right. So moved by Senator Rosenwald, seconded by Senator Pearl. And now I'm gonna, before I let you speak on it, I'm gonna have the department tell us all the things that we're doing right.
Great. That is always what I like to do. So for the record, my name is Patricia Tilley. I am the Director of Public Health at the Department of Health and Human Services. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you a little bit about this. This has been work that I know that Senator Rosenwald has felt very passionately about for a long time. We participated in the summer working group around this. And what we wanted to have the opportunity to present today was some of the programmatic and quite frankly, because this is finance, the financial implications of this bill. Just as way of background, we were not asked to do a fiscal note on this when it went to the policy committee. We asked them to do that. That's why you see the fiscal note a little bit later. So in a nutshell, and Senator Rosenwald can speak to the nature of this much better than I can, but what this would do is address some of the data that is collected by the birth record. The birth record, as you know it, typically, most of us think of it as the birth certificate that says mom, dad, when the baby was born, where it was, and that's it. Behind that data is significantly more data that is a national data set. The National Center for Health Statistics is the entity in the CDC that is identified by the Public Health Acts at the national level to collect the same set of data from all 50 states. In that, there are no names in that data that go to the federal level, but there are other identifiers. In New Hampshire, we are unique because Vital Records sits within the Secretary of State's office. It does not sit in the Department of Health and Human Services. In 49 other states, it sits within a public health entity. We're always the New Hampshire exception, and this is just one of the many ways we're the exception. Where this becomes into some difficulty and where we have opposed some of the nature of this bill is the way it will impact the way in which we do work here in the department. We currently have an MOU with the Secretary of State's office, and also in statute, it is already said that we get the full data set, that they send to us the full data set in order for us to do our work. I passed around a letter earlier to the clerk, and you can read it. It's long and dense. I apologize. It goes against my cardinal rule of any testimony to be long and dense, but this is complicated stuff, and I wanted you to have the information available for you to look through when you can. By removing identifiers or the health information, so the original 105 it went down one path. The amendment is going down a slightly different path, again, that I think the senator will speak to, creates some difficulty for us in doing some of our functions. On that letter, you'll see that there's a number of public health activities that we will no longer be able to do unless we have that complete data set. Issues around assuring newborn screening programs are done in a timely way, that physicians and hospitals are doing their job to get those babies screened, or at least opt out of a screen as early as possible, because we know with newborn screening, every minute counts. The longer you wait for a clinical diagnosis, the more likely a child will either die or have significant health outcomes. This is the same with our birth conditions program. We use this data for maternal mortality reviews so that we understand why particular women in particular areas might be more at risk of severe morbidity and mortality from giving birth. Not included here, we'll give an example of how we've recently used that is around birthing hospitals. We know we've had a huge problem in the state of our closing of our birth hospitals. And instead of just sort of waving our hands and saying that's a problem, we've used this data to show and use some of the identifiers and more importantly, the health information to show what the outcome is and what the potential outcome can be of closing those birth hospitals. We use it around some work in infectious disease, and most importantly in public health, it's the root of our data analysis. It's the way we can tell you in the state without a doubt how many preterm births there are, low birth weight, infant mortality, all of that uses information from the birth record. But this isn't only a public health problem. We also use the identifiers for things like child support services to independently verify paternity, for eligibility and abuse and fraud management for our other programs such as TANF, SNAP, Medicaid. We use this to compare the Medicaid population to the rest of the population, so we can see if our Medicaid programs are serving our Medicaid patients in the best possible way. We also use this data in DCYF. We use both identifiers and some of the health information in DCYF for adoptions, for ensuring that there's statistics to determine financial eligibility for programs, for CAPTA CARA. This is a particular item that we talked about several years ago now, and I know that Senator Rosenwald and others on this table were very interested back then. We have a requirement from the federal government to provide aggregate data around women with a perinatal substance abuse, if the infant or substance use, not abuse, if that infant was exposed. In New Hampshire, we did another uniquely New Hampshire way to do this. Other states, just all of that information goes straight to a child protective agency. Providers just say, yep, that child was exposed to a substance or an opioids, and here you go, DCYF, here are all the names of those women. In New Hampshire, we took a different approach to protect the privacy of those women, that public health would go through the data, go through the birth record data, make an aggregate report, give the aggregate report to DCYF, so DCYF never sees the identifiers, and then DCYF meets their obligation for the Child Abuse Protection Act. Other issues that you just should be aware of are around, at sort of a national level, complete birth data, the data that is sent to the CDC, is used. Demographic characteristics, these birth demographic characteristics are used to calculate population estimates in between the two decennial census. That's one of the ways that the federal government uses the data from New Hampshire. All of those indicators, they use it to populate the census in between the decennial counts. Other ways that federal gets involved in this is we use it for Social Security cards. The way the data is collected right now, the information for the mother and the child is shared with the Social Security Administration. This allows the mother to get more easy access to Social Security cards for their kiddos. So what does this mean for money? That's what you're probably most interested in. It means a lot. A number of our grants all require us to do this kind of data evaluation as a condition of receiving the grant. And so that's everything from our maternal and child health block grant, our pregnancy risk assessment monitoring system, maternal mortality, issues around home visiting. Again, we evaluate our work based on the birth record data. CAPTA CARA, I already talked about. We have new funds from COVID around called the Epidemiologic Laboratory Capacity Funds. This is an old set of funding that we've gotten an influx of dollars for, particularly for data modernization of vital records. Again, every other state has vital records in their public health department. We don't. We just pass through that money, give it to the Secretary of State's office so they can use it to support the vital record system. So that's over $1 million. There's a set of figures here in the fiscal note, comes to about 8 million. When we tack on some of these other funds that we didn't even include in the fiscal note, the number comes out to be about 10 million. Can I tell you today in absolute certainty that is the number we will not get from the federal government? I can't, but I can tell you that CDC has told us that in their CDC grants, we would no longer be eligible for those funds. That was a call I had with them on Monday. And they said, nope, if you're not collecting this full data set and sending it to us, and also having the ability for public health or DHHS to be able to do the data analysis of it, you don't get the money. And so that will have an impact. I fully understand and understand how seriously each one of you take your role in protecting privacy and private information. I'm speaking quickly because I know you don't have a lot of time, but I want to make sure you know that we know how important this information is. We don't take that responsibility lightly. When individuals in Department of Health and Human Services have access to this data, it's role-based access, so you don't get the whole kit and caboodle. If your job is to do something for DCYF, you get to see the columns that are required for you, whether that's a name and a date. If you are a data analyst doing work on prematurity, you get to see another set of data. We have a pretty robust data stewardship and data governance plan within DHHS that I think many of you are familiar with. We fully understand, appreciate, and know that this is a tricky policy decision that's very complex that you all will have to decide where to come down on. Our role today is just simply to tell you that there's a lot of money tied to this. It's complicated, and we use this data in lots of different ways. So I will pause because I've just said a lot of things.
Questions?
Thank you. To me, this is like the purest form of public policy debate, because we are here to represent the interests of the people of New Hampshire. The Department of Health and Human Services wants to do good work, and I support them in that. I think Amendment 0948S is more helpful to them in that it does not allow someone to opt out of sharing her health information with the Division of Vital Records, but it requires that it be de-identified before it's released from the hospitals. So, complete set of statistics, we will know how many preterm births we have, how many of them are paid for by Medicaid, how many of them involve cigarettes, alcohol, illegal substances, how many are cesarean sections, how much the mother weighed when her last period was, but we won't know who they are. For the last 9 months, the Division of Vital Records and the Department of Health and Human Services have told us that only de-identified data was shared with the federal government. I found out this morning that that is not true. That everything that is on this birth worksheet that I've highlighted for you in your book, except the mother's name, is shared with the federal government. And I keep coming back to another unique thing about New Hampshire, which is that 332I clearly states that the information in somebody's medical record belongs to them. It does not belong to the hospital. It does not belong to the state government. It does not belong to the federal government. It belongs to them. But here's the policy debate. Do we believe that people have a right to privacy as we've enshrined in our state constitution and shared only de-identified data with state and federal government? And if we lose the CDC grants, that will be about $3 million a year. I know that is big money, but is people's privacy for sale? For me, it's not. I think that this amendment also is less burdensome on the hospitals than the bill is introduced, because it will not require them to get consent, manage that consent, and keep that consent. It will just require new paper and electronic forms that don't include the identifiers. So that's where we are. I believe the department will still be able to do its work. The Division of Public Health Services does not provide health care to people. That's what doctors are for. Doctors will still provide health care for their patients. They will recommend what tests patients should have, screen them for hepatitis C or other sexually transmitted diseases. The providers do the safe plans of care under CAPTA, not the department. So, yes, it's different. Yes, it's a change, but I think it's consistent with who we are in New Hampshire. And so I delivered on to the rest of you. And again, ask you, my male colleagues, what if it were you?
Senator Pearl, then Senator
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alessandro.
Thank you,
So,
thank you, Mr.
Senator-
Chair.
Senator Pearl first.
Oh, excuse me.
Senator Rosenwald, I'm reviewing your amendment. In a quick look, does this still allow for the opt-out provision of the patient if they do not want to fill out this information?
So, thank you for that question. It doesn't change the part of the mother's worksheet, which is if you just sort of turn in your book, you'll see there's the first page is the mother's worksheet. It's back and front of the first page. It does not change the decriminalization of that. But it clarifies that it's only about what is not necessary for a birth certificate. So you still can't lie for a birth certificate. You can't lie about who the parents are or anything. Those criminal provisions still apply. But the mother is no longer going to be threatened with Class B felony for lying about what she weighed before she got pregnant. The difference of this amendment is on the facility worksheet part, which starts on the second page. And that is what the hospitals and birthing centers send to the Division of Vital Records. The Senate Bill 105 has introduced, allowed someone to opt out of sharing. That would prevent the department from getting a complete set of statistics on every one of the 12,000 births a year. Not very many people opt out, but probably some would.
So we're eliminating the opt-out provision?
Yes, but de-identifying all of the data.
I have to tell you, I'm uncomfortable with that part. I really think that I agree with you that this is someone's data, it's theirs, and they have the right to decide whether it's shared or not. I really have a problem with not allowing them the ability to opt out if they choose not to. I'm fully understanding, but I think that you ask if it was me, and if it was me, I probably would have no issue sharing it if it was my own, but I don't think that I would that the state gets to make that decision for Senator Bradley, as he might not have the same willingness to share his medical conditions as I would, or Senator D'Alessandro, or any of us.
I understand that. I guess I feel like without any identifying information, it's not really your information anymore. It's statistics about a mother and a baby's health,
I'm not,
but it's
I
totally
understand.
disentangled from you.
I understand. I'm still not certain I'm comfortable with not having that opt-out provision there. I guess I need to think about that a little bit.
All right,
Okay.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I spent 6 years getting the birth records bill passed here in New Hampshire. It was a trying, very, very trying experience. And as I mentioned during that time, I have 2 adopted children who wanted this and wanted this desperately. And one of the things that was so important with the health records. And what was there. And for 20 years, 30 years, that was all closed, couldn't access it. So it seems to me if what we're doing here in any way affects that, I'm affected because I believe that's the best piece of legislation that I sponsored, and I've been here for 50 years. That's the best piece of legislation that I sponsored because it satisfied more people, more adoptees and their original parents. I had a woman call me during the Senate session, crying on the telephone, because this was giving her an opportunity to find out about her child. So if anything we're doing here alters that, I find that to be very discouraging.
Thank you for that question. So I'm going to do something I usually don't share. I'm going to share a personal story. I too was adopted. Birth records were not in the state of New Hampshire, and I had to go to a state in New York to get my records, and we had to have both the birth mother and the child, myself, connect to do that. Luckily, in my case, that happened when I was 40 something years old, and I was able to get that health information from my birth mother and from the birth record. It's unclear to me in this scenario with the de-identification, with the amendment, with the de-identification of that health information, if that would be available to the adoptee or not. We would have to really dig into this. One of the things, and again, I appreciate Senator Rosenwald's conviction in this space.
Sure.
We would have to figure out a whole new way of collecting data. And by we, I mean the Division of Vital Records. We would certainly help in DHHS. Because what happens right now is the department gets the complete list. We don't get the two different, there's a facility worksheet that has the health information and then the identifiers of who you are and where you were born. That all gets combined at the DVRA and then sent to us. So just from the DHHS perspective, it comes as a single list that is also similarly sent to the CDC. We would have to find out more, Senator D'Alessandro, if with a de-identified health information, if that would impact adoptees.
Further discussion.
Just one more question, Mr. Chair.
Under D.
I think until I knew the answer to that question, I would find it very hard to vote for this bill. In some instances, that information was very, very important. It saved lives. And if I thought that something like this would hinder that in any way, I would feel morally obligated to either get more information or not to support this.
Sure. And I think I do want to say also that the adoption legislation is another section of RSA. I'm not an expert on it, so I just want to be abundantly clear. I do know from what my colleagues in DCYF have said, they have a statutory responsibility to manage those things, to manage the original birth record as well as the adoptee birth record, in addition to the Division of Vital Records. I just want to be clear on the record. I don't know the depths of that particular piece of statute this minute.
Thank you.
Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. So children don't really have a right to their parents' medical records. Those medical records belong to the individual, to the parent. So I don't know why we would say that an adopted child has access to their birth parents' medical records that they wouldn't have to their adoptive parents' medical records, which they don't. Under any law, children do not have access to their parents' medical records. Like parents don't have access to their children's medical records when their children are adults. It belongs to the individual.
All right, we've had lots of discussion.
Can I offer one more?
Senator Pearl.
Thank you. I've had a few minutes to think about it. I think the most important part of this bill to me is the decriminalization section. I really do. As much as I guess I can reluctantly support your amendment. I don't like the fact that we're removing the opt-out provision, but I think the most important part is to get this bill moved forward and get the decriminalization portion of it through. So having said that, I will support the amendment. I think I would prefer to have that opt-in provision, and I think you know that I would prefer that, but if we decide we want to do that in another bill, I guess we could.
The thing in front of the committee, right? Did you have some?
So is this amendment that we're voting on going to address the concerns of the department vis-a-vis?
No, it just creates different concerns. So, you know, so I want to be on the record, the decriminalization we're supportive of. That part of the bill, very supportive. No one should, you know, right now, nobody's chasing after someone if they said they weighed 140 pounds and they weigh 170 pounds. That is not something anyone is interested in going after. So that part we're very comfortable with. And we know, you know, on occasion people leave parts of those blank, and that's fine too. The problem that we will have within the department is, again, being able to do the appropriate statistical analyses for all of those programs that I just said and all of the public health work that we do. We will have to work with, and I understand Senator Rosenwald's desire to say vital records, you figure it out. How do you send the data? You know, how the forms work? You know, how do we make sure that we have identifiable information so that we don't have Medicaid fraud? That's really important. It leaves a lot of those details out into the miasma. And perhaps not most important, but important to me is I will not, with the de-identified health records, I'm never going to be able to really say where there's equitable access to care, where prematurity is, you know, a bigger risk than in other places. That's the sort of data I'm used to presenting to you as we make big policy decisions, and that won't be available to us.
Sense of the committee, are you guys wanting to move this along today?
Yes.
Okay, the matter in front of us is the amendment to 0948F. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? 6-1. And now,
Move on to
assuming
pass
that the
as amended.
other amendment does not come forward,
Right,
Senator Birdsell has already moved off to
Okay.
pass that, seconded by Senator Bradley. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Same result. And let's see, who was the original sponsor?
me,
Senator Rosenwald.
but if Senator Birdsall wants to take it out, I'm fine with that.
Senator Birdsell will be taking it up.
All right.
All right. 130.
Move on to pass.
I'll second that.
Time,
Right, can we get there?
time.
That's close.
I did. Senator Pearl.
Senator Pearl made the motion, seconded by Senator Birdsell, I think.
No, it's
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald seconded it. Good.
all right.
Okay, came out of committee 5-0. Relative to the court security officer training program, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. And I'll take that one too. Next one on the list is 151.
Move on to pass.
Senator Rosenwald moves on to pass, seconded by Senator D'Alessandro. Came out of the committee 5-0, relative to mental health education. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed. Any volunteers for this one?
I'll take it.
Senator D'Alessandro. Uh, 175.
Second.
Senator Bradley moves on to pass, seconded by Senator Innes. Senator Rosenwald, do you have an amendment that you want to move?
On this,
There is.
do I?
Only if you want to.
It's not in my
No,
book.
Nothing that you have to.
You're not gonna
I
twist
don't
the
have
arm?
it in my book. Thank you. Oh, yes. So, thank you. So it requires a report to HHS oversight, and it just fixes the effective date sections. Second.
We've already got an ought to pass from Senator Bradley on the amendment. Okay, Senator Birdsell moves ought to pass, seconded by Senator Rosenthal. For the discussion,
Mr. Chair,
Senator Pearl?
so I don't have an issue with the amendment. There was discussion of concern that we had that we potentially could put into this if we chose to, if we wanted to make a committee change to this amendment about adding a word. I don't know if you'd entertain having Senator Whitley come up and join us for just a minute, if she's willing.
I don't think it's this bill.
I'm sorry?
It's 175, I think is.
This is the long.
170,
Yeah, that's the bill we're on.
I thought we were on, oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
maybe that's why you didn't have the amendment.
I was looking at the wrong bill in my,
Senator Whitley would like to address us.
So I know, Senator,
looking at
you received the
157.
email from OPLC that where Director Lindsay and I had Director
About
Courtney
this
and I had a
certification.
discussion about the doula section again.
Yeah.
That seems to be our new haunting section,
Yeah.
isn't it? And so she had indicated to me that she would accept that it was the legislature's will that, you know, we were only looking to have doulas registered for Medicaid purposes, but she did make a suggestion about adding the word voluntary into, I apologize, I was trying to pull the email up real quick, into RSA 126-99, and I'm trying to find it in the bill, and I apologize, we're moving quickly and I didn't quite get there. I think it's on page, do you recall what page that was on?
Section 13.
Sorry,
Section 13.
section 13, okay.
If I may speak to that.
I wanted to get your thoughts on
Sure.
it, if you would, if that's okay, Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Page 7, there we go. Thank you.
Line 28.
So thank you for that question. So this is the issue about I made it clear on the floor and then again in finance committee that the intent of the drafters was to just make the certification a requirement for those who are billing Medicaid. It's not a required certification for every doula. So we confirmed again with OPLC, who also helped draft the bill, that they and the Director Courtney just said to us in that email, the office would interpret this language as providing for voluntary certification doulas. So she's confirming my understanding, and that's how they would interpret it. Now, she then makes the suggestion about adding in that line, for the purposes of Medicaid billing pursuant to 126A, Section 99, the Office of Professional Licensure and Certification shall establish a voluntary doula certification. And I'm fine with that. But my only concern is that, and Director Lippman can speak to this, we have to make clear that it's not voluntary if you want to bill Medicaid. Because, so that would be my only concern, is that if we put that, I don't think we need it, first of all. I think we have clarification, clear legislative intent, clear that the OPLC will interpret it the way that we've drafted it. But my only concern with adding that word is that folks will think it is voluntary for the purposes of the Medicaid billing, and it's not. It actually is a requirement for them to go ahead and get the money from the federal government. So that would be my only concern to that.
Oh, go ahead.
So if we did that, and I think that you would put the word voluntary on line 33, shall establish a voluntary doula certification process. It's voluntary, but if a doula wants to be able to be reimbursed for Medicaid, they're going to have to be certified. So it would be I think the intent is it would be up to the person themselves to determine whether they want to accept Medicaid funding or not. So I don't see that it would be a problem.
If I may have Director Lippman, and I'm fine with adding that word. I just want,
All right.
I don't want people to be confused that it is
Before-
voluntary to,
Before we go any further, what's my drop dead date, time on you guys for this afternoon? 2? I got 16 minutes left. So what I'm gonna do is Senator Pearl, Senator Whitley, bring me back an amendment and the next time we meet.
I don't think we need it. I think if the committee wants to do it, you can just add the word, but I just want to hear that.
I'm
I don't think it's necessary.
exercising my
All right,
decision
I'll
as the chair.
I'll move a committee amendment to add the word voluntary on page 7, line 33, between the word certification, or between establish a voluntary doula certification.
I'll second.
Okay, committee amendment and to include 0844 with the addition of changing. Did you get that? All right. Anyone else have any questions? All those in favor of the committee amendment, which includes 0844S and adding the word voluntary in the appropriate spot, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And Senator Pearl? Oh,
Yeah, I don't think you want me taking that one.
Senator Birdsall wants to take that.
We vote on that.
We need to vote on pass, yes.
Passes.
What's, it's already done.
All right.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now we're up to date.
All right, good.
Senator Birdsall, 205.
I move on to pass.
All right, I'll slow him down a little bit.
You just sped us up. I was
Well, it didn't work.
Casey Jones at the lead.
burning a lot of gas doing that.
Don't you pass?
Alessandro moves ought to pass,
Second.
seconded by Senator Rosenbaum. I mean, Senator Birdsall.
Wow.
All right. Further discussion? Senator,
So I'm gonna vote for this today, but I'm gonna also ask that, Mr. Kane go back and look at what the cost of $500 one-time stipend would be, similar to what we've done in the past. I'm assuming that this will go on the table. We'll have an opportunity to debate it in the budget. So while I'm supporting it today, I reserve my right to, during the budget, introduce a different concept.
further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Okay.
6-1.
I'll be happy to take it out.
Senator D's taking it out. All right. 249.
Ought to pass.
Second.
Senator Bradley, seconded by Senator Innes. 249 is relative to the release of defendant pending trial. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
6-1.
Excuse me.
Oh.
This wasn't,
Oh, were you confused?
yeah,
Senator, you thought we were on a different.
I thought we were in a different group, Mr. Chairman. Could we redo this vote?
We can redo the vote. Okay, we have a
Thank you.
request to reconsider.
Second.
All those in favor of reconsideration, say aye. Aye. All right, we're back to scratch. We have a motion of ought to pass by Senator Bradley, seconded by Senator Innes. Senator Sandro.
Thank you. I was confused this with another piece of legislation, so I would, I appreciate the fact that you've allowed me you've allowed for reconsideration and
Okay.
take a vote at that time.
Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
So,
5-2. And Senator Innes? Next one is 252.
second,
Senator Rosenwald, seconded by Senator D'Alessandro, moves on to pass. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And Senator Rosenwald, you get that one. Senate Bill 256.
Second.
Just a minute. All right. All right, so Senator Pearl moved, and did you second that, Regina? All right. And we have amendment 0999S. Discussion.
Speak to the amendment if I may?
You moved the amendment too, right?
Yes, I did.
And you seconded. Okay.
You all set for me?
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
thank you. So I had asked a couple of weeks ago that we hold this bill because I had a concern with the language in it, the way it was originally drafted would cause issues with employees, specifically on my own farm, is why I thought of it, but I know it would impact anyone who uses ATVs or UTVs on their farm. And it would, there was exemptions for folks, like myself or my children, but not my employees. And it would have required me to put my employees through a training program to use an RV recreationally when that's not how we were using them at the farm. So I've worked with Fish and Game through several iterations, and we've come up with this draft, which I believe covers the concerns that I had, and still Fish and Game is in support of. It allows them to still enforce and enact the law the way they were looking to do, but gives the provisions to allow us who are using ATVs in a non-recreational manner for work purposes to still do what we need to do. So that is the crux of what this amendment does.
Senator Rosenwald.
Do you not get pleasure out of work?
That's a great question.
So in response,
I couldn't resist.
I've been up since 1 a.m. this morning, and right now I'm not feeling terribly pleasurable about my work, but in general, yes, I do.
Okay.
But I think it's non-recreational.
I'll move the amendment.
I already did.
We've already got that. Senator Pearl and Senator Birdsell moved both the original bill and the amendment. So we're all set there. Okay, further discussion on the amendment. Thing before us is 0999S. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, 7-0. The bill is amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I will take this one out if you'd like.
Senator Pearl gets to take it up. And now we're down to 260. Senator Bradley moves ought to pass. Seconded by Senator Birdsall. Okay, this was a 3-2 vote on the Senate floor relative to deductions under the business profits tax for compensation of members and owners. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 5-2, Innes. 263, Bradley D'Alessandro, OTP. Okay. Okay, this came out of the committee 5-0.
Great, good.
It's a- Senator Ennis says it's a great bill. Okay. Extending the New Hampshire Granite Advantage Healthcare Program. Okay. Discussion. Senator Rosenwald.
Are you thinking of putting this bill on the table or sending it to the House?
I think it should go to the House. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I just have been hearing worrisome rumors
That may be the case.
that I'm sure you've heard
All
too.
what they do, but I think this bill should go to the
Okay.
House. We certainly, if need be, can put it in the budget, but
Okay,
I think it should go to the House.
thank you.
Seeing no other discussions, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. 7-0. Senator Birdsall.
Unless, do you want to come back down?
I wouldn't mind
Not
taking
you.
Well, if Senator Gray wants to go back in the chair, I'm happy to take it out.
Okay. Senator Bradley.
All right.
Only with his own permission. All right, so we're doing very well on our keeping up with the list. We have the option of having, Senator Bradley wants to talk to me about that, whether I think we need a second committee meeting next week on Thursday. I don't think we have that many bills. Do you know, have you got? I think I'm in good shape then, so.
So here's what I'm gonna suggest. Other people, thinking right now is come in next Thursday full. The only bills I'm aware of that are on the calendar in this committee, there may be a couple of other stragglers, but only bills. And then finance committee, I think should be noticed to meet if necessary after session. So that if we don't wrap up on Tuesday, we can finish on Thursday. Does that make sense?
That's fine. And since they'll all be executive session, even if we get something off of that morning session and you guys want to act on it, I mean, it wouldn't preclude you from doing that.
Don't we need to notice it?
Only would be noticed as executive session, you know, so. Senator Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question that I posed earlier about Senate Bill 132, you're not taking it to finance. It according to the financial note, it does have some financial implications. So I was wondering why you waived it.
Again, I'll get back to you because
Okay.
I haven't had time to go look it up on the reason that I waived it.
Okay. We could meet before session tomorrow.
What, well, since
This is the
we're here,
sanctuary
we got a
city, but-
couple of minutes. What is it, the financial implications? What I saw in there, I believe, was that it would increase some of the prosecutions, was what it was. And, you know, that number was indeterminate, and whether it would raise to, you know, $100,000 or not was a great question, and that's probably why I waived it. Is there?
It just,
Local impact.
yeah, local impact.
I mean, if you want me to, if the committee wants me to take that, I will, but, I just thought that, you know, like I say, that,
I just think it does have financial implications. If it's the will of the committee not to do it, so be it. I just bring it up as a point so that if it does pass or where it does go, know that there are financial implications at the local municipal.
I'll tell you what, we'll modify the report to say that we will take that one to finance. And that way,
132,
that's ELMA.
yeah. Right, election law. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Anyone have anything else? Motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Moved by everyone, seconded by the rest. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And our business of the day being completed, we are adjourned.
Great, thank you. Oh, hey, Sydney.
Really don't. Just take it.